Hey everybody, welcome to the 30-minute resume reset brought to you by Bragg and Wright, which is the company that I am birthing currently. Some of the folks on this call will be intimately aware of that. But today we're talking about applicant tracking systems, what they are, and what you need to know so that you can submit a resume and actually have human eyes get on it and not just have it kind of sent into the technical ether. We're going to go ahead and get started. Slowly, if my computer responds. There we go. Okay. So we've got a couple of presenters today. I'm your first one. I'm Morgan McCoy. I'm the owner and CEO of Bragg and Wright, a resume and career coaching consultation business. I have 10 years of experience in document design and resume design. I've actually been doing this for a long time, but more recently I'm doing it for money. So it's exciting to be moving forward and hopefully helping more and more people really develop the writing that they need to share those skills and brag right on themselves. I'm also joined today by Sarah Filicetti, who is a global program and product manager. Sarah, do you want to come on and say hi?
Sure, I'm really happy to be here and I'm excited for this new adventure. Like she said, a global program manager, most recently at Meta for their global business marketing side of the business, specifically their safety and integrity program, was one of the recent layoffs. And so that's led me here to Morgan and excited to happy to help.
Awesome. Well, we're going to hear from Sarah a little bit more here in a second to take a look at her incredible resume and everything that she did to make sure that it was applicant tracking system friendly. But with that, we're going to get into what do we know about an applicant tracking systems. ATS is something that gets thrown around as an acronym around resumes pretty frequently, but what they actually are is a software that companies and recruiters use to parse through resumes and specifically tag skills, experiences, and qualifications that they can highlight to say, like, yes, we want this to hire this person. There's a little bit of a process here. First, you submit your resume, and you might not even know that it's going into an applicant tracking system, but that tracking system scans it and identifies key experiences or skills, like we said, and then says, yes, we want to move forward with this candidate based on the setup that the recruiter has given the directive that the recruiter has given the tracking system, or it throws it in the trash. It says, this doesn't match the keywords, this doesn't match the directive, we don't want to look at this. If you've ever received a almost immediate response from a company for a job that you've applied for, this is what's happened here. The tracking system has taken a look at it, said, this doesn't match the directive that I've been given, and gotten rid of it. Then once the tracking system has kind of gone through, read those resumes, and finds the ones that matches its directive, then it sends it on to the recruiter, and the recruiter is then able to view and parse those resumes. So what this is really doing is streamlining the candidate selection process and radically reducing the number of resumes that actually end up in front of recruiters. Actually, 75% of applicants are disqualified via an applicant tracking system before their resume ever gets to a recruiter. So this is why it's really important to know kind of what a tracking system is and how you can set up your resume to be applicant tracking system friendly so that you're not part of that 75% getting automatically disqualified. All right. What do you need to do to actually get those human eyes on your resume? There's three things we're going to talk about today that are keys to making sure that your resume is ATS friendly. The first thing, it's pretty simple. Make sure that you're using standard names. This means using standard names for your sections. So words like experience, skills, education. You don't want to have a header that's called like, this is why I'm awesome, because the ATS system is not going to be able to read that, and it's not going to be able to digest what's actually going on within your resume, and it's going to put it into that 75% category where it's just ignoring it and moving forward. Next, you want to use keywords actually from the job postings that you're most interested in. You should take a look at different job posts and give yourself a couple of kind of priority job titles. For me, this might be product operations manager. For Sarah, for example, this might be global program manager. You really want to hone in on the job title that you're most interested in and take a look at the job descriptions that are really exciting for you. You then want to parse that job description yourself. That just means like taking a look at it, reviewing, and seeing what keywords are associated in that job description that you need to pull into your resume to make sure that your resume keywords are matching what is listed in that job description. Here I've got a screenshot of a job description from a product marketing manager, and I've highlighted a couple of key terms that if I was writing a resume for this position or for this type of position, I would want to make sure those kind of highlighted key things are included in the verbiage somewhere in my resume, whether that's specific skills or experiences. For example, when I see interacting with customers as being a kind of like key element to this job description, I might include a specific line in my resume that says, I interacted with customers, or like interacted with customers over the course of their life cycle journey to engage and like support them or something. The fact of the matter is you want to be using this verbiage from the job description to actually pull into your resume and document and really get that tracking system, putting eyes on your resume, saying, yep, this matches, and moving you forward. The third element here is formatting for readability. This just means avoiding anything crazy. This was really hard for me to learn as a document designer and somebody who loves graphics, who loves images, who wants things to be like really fancy and pretty. I'm seeing a lot of like head nods here. But what ultimately, you have to remember that your audience, your first audience for your resume is a flawed piece of software that is just trying to read data essentially and move you forward. So this is why it's really important to have essentially as bare bones of a resume as you can get, because it's less likely to kind of give the ATS benefits and more likely to get you moved forward. Once we talk with Sarah here in a second, we'll take a look at when does having a like more highly designed resume come into play, and when might you want something that's a little more graphic as opposed to when you want something that's like really bare bones and mostly text essentially. So you really want to avoid any graphics, like we said. Tables or uncommon fonts are going to not help you out when it comes to an ATS system. No, this way. All right, I want to talk about the future for just a second, and that is where is ATS taking us? Because it is not going away. Theoretically, it's making recruiters' lives easier. So just like many other things, there are implications when it comes to AI and applicant tracking systems. So in the past, we might have all heard this quote of the average recruiter really only gives a resume 7 seconds of eyesight. That's gone. You don't get 7 seconds anymore. The applicant tracking system is already going through and sorting through, and this is only going to increase once AI comes into the picture. There are a couple of ways that we can really expect AI to impact the application process. These are kind of the automation of mundane recruiter tasks, like responding to applicants in early stages. If you've ever gotten kind of what feels like a cold or like templated response from a recruiter, that's probably coming from an applicant tracking system, which has either sorted you to say like, hey, no thanks, or sorted you to say, we'd like to set up a first interview. We really see these types of emails come into play early on in the early stages of application and interviewing. Another way is scheduling time. This is one way that AI is really going to impact and hopefully make all of our lives easier, in that it will go through the hiring team's calendars and identify the best times that are the times that the team has free to then be able to share with you to get that time scheduled. So theoretically, we'll be moving past the days of, well, when are you free between this time and this time? Oh, now this date has changed. Oh, now like somebody else isn't available. And theoretically, AI will take us to a place where it's reading everybody's calendars and identifying those perfect times for everyone to meet up for an interview. Lastly here, smarter resume parsing is a potential with AI. And this is actually something that I'm really excited about for the future of applicant tracking systems, because this means less reliance on these kinds of specific keywords that we've come to know, like within job descriptions, that we have to really frame our wording in a specific way, and reading more contextually what is included in your resume and like what the sentiment of your experiences are, as opposed to needing to match word for word to those job descriptions. So hopefully less reliance on keywords, smarter parsing to come. Now I'm going to bring back on Sarah, and we're going to talk a little bit about all that she's done to make her resume applicant tracking system friendly. So hey, Sarah, come on, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the resume that we're looking at here?
Definitely. I'm one of those people that wanted the big, beautiful, pretty resume. And I was like, this is not getting me anywhere. I definitely need to change this up. I have a cousin who works in recruiting, and he's like, well, because it's not set up for the ATS system. And that was a big aha moment for me. So, like you said, having the clearly labeled sections, making sure that everything's easy to pull from. The first thing you see for each those work experience that I have is my position. It's the same formatting for each of them. So it's really easy to see, to pull. Um, One of the easiest ways for me to, like you said, tailor it to each job application or each job that I'm looking for is starting out with a summary, because that's something, again, getting those keywords in there, they'll see that right away and you know what you've done, but making sure they know what you've done in relation to that job you're looking for. Again, no special formatting anywhere, plain old text. And then at the end, because I know I have more than just what's in those few lines for each position, I do have specific skills and tools I've used listed separately. Because again, with that program that's going through and just looking for specific keywords, if it isn't mentioned in a specific job or a specific role that I've had, but it's something I've worked with, I want to make sure it's there. It's something that a search bot, whatever you want to call it, is going to go through and see, oh, you have worked with that. We are looking for someone who's worked with this. You've worked with that at more than one role as well. So it's really easy for them to find. And then again, like you said, with parsing, it's really easy and straightforward for any of those tools to just pull it directly into the job application or whatever tool you're using to apply for a job. Um, and that became this. So it is something, like you said, I do tweak for each individual job or role that I'm looking for, knowing the experience I have and what I've worked with, how to highlight that the best way to show them, yes, I have worked with that. Yes, I've been successful. If I have any data or any numbers I can add to it. As a program manager, it's kind of difficult, especially in my last role, we weren't a revenue generating team. So it's hard to show what's the impact we made, not just this is what I did. This is what I did. This is the impact I had. This is what, helped our department, helped our company. This is what the change we made, what we improved, putting that all in there. So not only am I talking about myself and building myself up, but that program can go through and pull that out and see how important that is and make sure that I'm the one that they're looking for.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Can you talk a little bit about your process of identifying job descriptions and how you like matched identified those keywords and then pulled them into your resume?
Definitely. If I'm looking at a position, like you said, global program manager is what my job title goal is. I've also had years and years of experience in project management. And so if I'm looking at a role that's more program management forward, I'm going to highlight how I've worked in that capacity at my roles, whether it's overseeing an entire program or helping the process that created the program. Whereas if it's a role where it's more project management heavy, I know that I've done that in most of these roles as well. And so making sure I really highlight what I did related to project management and all of them, because getting your foot in the door, you can talk about the experience you have doing both, but they are specifically looking for your experience as a project manager in this role. So you want to make sure they see all that you've done in regards to that. And so that's where, for me at least, I tend to tailor one way or the other, dependent on the role.
Awesome. And do you actually have multiple different resumes focused in on those roles?
Oh, yes. I have at any given time probably 4 or 5 floating resumes going back and forth, whether it's I'm looking at something in this tech industry specifically, or I'm leaning more towards advertising and marketing roles. And again, whether it's a program management job or a project management job, whether it's something that'll rely on my managing of teams, or if I'm going for an individual contributor role, I want to make sure that I'm highlighting what I've done in regards to each of those. And again, the summary is where I really tailor it to the specific job or role that I'm looking at, because that's more where you can talk about yourself a little bit and your experience as a whole, and then they can see all the specifics in each of your job listings there.
Awesome. I want to touch on your skills here for just a second because you actually have a really long list of skills, even longer than mine. And so I was really excited to see this. How do you, like, when you think about a skill that you want to list or a tool, kind of what is your expectation of like usage? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Anything that I listed, so my skills are kind of listed as soft skills, like I said, account management or leadership, things like that. Anything that I put on there, I am confident to say that I am great at, I'm comfortable with, I have experience with. When it comes to the tools and the list below, I am open to talking to how much experience I have with each of those, whether it's where I've used it in different places, different teams, different projects. Um, and honestly, both of those 2 lists came from as I'm going through job descriptions, or, you go on LinkedIn and you see the preferred skills or what they're looking for. I'm like, I have that. I have that. That's something I've used in this role, this role, and this role. Why am I not highlighting that specifically? And so at each role I've been at, pulling what I use daily, what were the most important things that, if someone's like, what are the top 3 things that your skills you're using every day? What's the most important tool that you're using all the time? Are you proficient in them? Do you feel comfortable and confident with them? And you could walk into a room and be like, I'm good at this and this and this. And so that's how I've built this list over the years, through my experiences and through what I've learned and through what I've used.
Yeah. I just love that because I think we sometimes can think about our tools or skills as something that we have to have been in every single day or use really frequently or be experts in. But when it comes to these tools and experiences, sometimes it's enough to just like have had an interaction with it or to have used it in a position, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't come back to it and be successful in it. So continuing to share
Exactly.
those tools and experiences that are very valid to you, but that you might no longer be in every day is very relevant to new potential roles.
Exactly. A lot of companies use them differently as well. So as long as you've seen that program and you're comfortable jumping back in, that's what they're looking for, because they want to train you to do it their specific way for their company or that role too.
Yeah, exactly. I want to take us now to your like more highly designed resume and talk about kind of when you
Mhm.
think about your 2 types of resumes, we saw already the more we'll call it cleanly formatted, conservatively formatted resume versus this resume. Where do you see kind of like yourself using these 2 different resumes?
I use my more plain text resume, like I said, for applying for jobs when again, ATS friendly. And then once I have that interview, once I know who I'm going to be speaking with, and I have whether it's a face to a name or a way of contacting them or through a hiring manager, that's when this resume comes in. Because to sit there and have them looking at a 3 or 4 page resume during an interview while they have questions for you or they want to go through your background, not only is it annoying, but it's not easy to follow. It's a lot of text and a lot of space. And so this one I use for more of an impact. It's prettier, it's more eye catching, and it's all on one page. So this does not work for ATS because of the formatting, because of the fonts, because of the colors, but it is a lot easier on the eyes. And so this is something I'll send directly to someone before I interview them to be like, here's my resume for, for reference. Or if I'm going into an in-person interview, this is what I'll bring printed out copies of. So they'll have that on hand. And again, like I said, more of an impact. Not going crazy with colors or putting huge graphics anywhere, doing anything like that. Nice and clean, a little bit of color, something to make you stand out so they remember you. Because a lot of people will bring in that plain text resume they've seen before, that the programs have seen before. And this is something to just help you stand out a little, something to catch their eye, something that they'll remember a little bit more. And so that's where this comes into play for me.
Awesome. One of the things I really noticed here between your resumes is the number of pages difference. Your plain copy resume is 3 pages, whereas this resume is a single page. How did you choose the roles that came onto the single page resume versus the 3 pages?
So I grew up, everyone was always, or at least I was told, a resume shouldn't be more than 1 page. And now when people have multiple roles that they need to add, it doesn't work. And so it kind of killed me a little bit when I was like, oh my gosh, my resume is how many pages long when it's plain text? But it's not people, like you said, going through with 7 seconds to look at a 1 page resume. It's AI or ATS using these programs to search as much of text as you want to give them. And this one is just kind of that thing that was put in my head a long time ago, 1 page um, resume, because I don't want them to have to be flipping back and forth or looking around for things. Um, Trying to pull the best highlights I can for this. Again, I still have my skills and experience. I still have my education, tools I've used, just not in the formatted friendly way that I need something to parse into something else. This is more for talking points, for, where have I done different things for different roles? How has my career progressed since I entered the industry? And so that's what I use this for, is more for storytelling. Because everyone's always like, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your elevator pitch? And I'm happy to go through it. And this has that all in one place so they can follow along as I tell how I got to where I am now. And then that opens it up for, any questions that aren't covered on that specific resume in front of them, um, to go over after that.
Yeah, we've all heard that kind of like 1 page resume. We'll call it like a myth or something, or
Yes.
sentiment.
Mhm.
But you're right, it does really depend on the situation in which the resume is being presented. If you're just uploading to an ATS system, then it doesn't really matter how many pages it is because no one's looking at the number of pages. It's not actually formatted as pages, it's formatted more as text boxes within that ATS system. So you should care or like worry less about the length of your resume when you're initially submitting, and then potentially have this like additional storytelling elevator pitch style of resume when you're ready to go into those later interviews. I absolutely love that. Awesome. Well, Sarah, I'm gonna kind of open us up for questions now. I would love to hear from our folks in the audience. Any questions on applicant tracking systems or how you can set yourself up for success?
I do have a question for just everybody here in the group. I know that we had kind of mentioned that you sometimes will have multiple resumes for different roles. So how do you guys kind of figure out like, okay, if I'm going for a CS role or a CSM role, and then there's an account management role, how do you guys kind of figure out like what keywords go into each one, I guess, or like how many that you should have? Do you kind of sit down and figure out like, hey, maybe I want to do account management, maybe I want to do CS, but like, how do I kind of do that?
Yeah, I would say depending on the similarities in the job descriptions that you're seeing, you may want 2 distinct resumes. If there are particular elements of the CSM role, and we know that there are that are really focused on the customer journey, on supporting clients through either transition or new product acquisition, we want to make sure that your resume is representing those key elements of the CSM role, as opposed to with a more sales focused role. That it's going to be more about calling folks and having conversations, and can you engage, and can you to like hook people and bring them in. Those are really two distinct character sets or two distinct job sets. And so I would recommend there having the two separate resumes, unless you're looking at like very entry level things where you're trying to kind of throw one resume at the wall and see what sticks. But in this current job market, I would recommend having those two distinct resumes and detailing and focusing the verbiage within that resume based on the title, job title, and job responsibilities that you're going after.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you, Jenna.
I think along the same lines, it may be the same experience you have, but the wording of it. For me, if I'm looking at a marketing role versus and in the creative field versus a program or project management in the tech field, it might be the exact same role or responsibility that I had for both, but the way that I word it would be more specific to either of the industries. So that same kind of thing as far as tailoring, I think, is also really important.
Definitely. We've got another question coming in from Christine, and she says, is there a way to tell that your resume is going to be scanned with an ATS system versus read manually by a recruiter? This is a really interesting question. And Sarah, I'm interested to hear your response here, because I would say it's really hard to tell. One aspect that might give you a heads up is how robust their like kind of text box system is. So when you go to upload your resume, is it having you then reproduce much of that resume into experiences boxes, text boxes with descriptions? Is it kind of having you repeat much of that resume into a more robot-friendly format? If so, there's a pretty good chance that it's going to go into a tracking system. That said, just uploading your resume, there are tracking systems that work that way as well, where they just parse it, and actually having the more broken out resume gives you a better chance of being able to have that system read the text of your resume as opposed to just the PDF. So I'd say it's really hard to tell, but applicant tracking systems are being used more and more, both to support recruiters and to make the hiring process more streamlined. And so I would say there's a better chance that it's going to an ATS than not. Sarah, you have thoughts?
I definitely agree. I think if it's a job application where you literally can fill it out with your LinkedIn and that's all you have to do, that's a pretty good sign that it's going straight to ATS. If you come across a job application that, yes, asks for your experience, but also has tailored questions that you have to actually give a response right then for, I think that sometimes is a little bit of, not necessarily all the time, but the more nuanced the questions are, or something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, or they want to dig deeper about certain topics, I think that's a good sign that someone's actually reading those and they're looking for something specific coming from you, not just, here's what I did, you saw it on LinkedIn, here it's just copied and paste, now let your system go through it. They're actually looking for something a little bit more there. I think oftentimes with the larger corporations, it's pretty good chance that it's going through ATS before it goes to any recruiters. But I think with some smaller firms and companies, they definitely, especially when they don't have as large of a team and, you know, it's someone joining a smaller team, they want to know more right away, because they might not have the number of applicants that one of these larger companies might have. So they're able to look at them a little deeper. At least that's what, in my experience, I've come across. It's also sometimes you'll apply or you won't apply for a job and a recruiter will reach out to you and you're like, this role has absolutely nothing to do with my experience. And you find that keyword that was in the job description and that's what pulled you in. And you're like, but that's really not what I do. So then you can also tell right away that was an ATS system, that wasn't a recruiter actually looking at what I've ever done and saying this would be a good fit.
Yeah. Oh, that was such a good response, especially the like scale of the company. If it's a mom and pop shop that's only a couple of people, then there's a pretty good chance that the recruiter is going to be the one looking at your resume. But if it's any company that's trying to work at scale, then they're most likely going to have an ATS system. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here because I wanted to keep as close to the 30 minutes as possible. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This was truly a like group effort. couldn't have happened without every single person on this call. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and energy here today. Feel free to follow us. We're on Brag and Write on Etsy if you're interested in any resume templates or help setting up your resume. You can also email us at bragandwriteconsulting.com. And if you enjoyed this session, it would be really helpful if you wanted to take our feedback survey. So you can go ahead, pull out your phone, scan this QR code, and go look at that feedback survey. And just for joining the session today, you can save 25% off of any Brag and Write template or service when you use code ResumeReno25. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you out there on the job application trail. See you guys.
Thank you.